All right, everyone. For months now, the basic platform of a lot of Democratic candidates has really been nothing more than a reaction to Trump. You saw that dude running for governor in Maryland, of course. What was his political ad about? Oh, here are the ways that I piss off Donald Trump. It wasn't really a platform, other than, hey, I stood with Planned Parenthood and supported an assault weapons ban. The rest of it was just sort of a mockery of Trump and saying, hey, I'm gay, and somehow this bothers him, even though Trump has been on board with gay rights for the last fucking decade. In fact, he was on board with the rudiments of gay rights before Hillary Clinton was, but somehow he's homophobic, and that becomes a campaign issue. That's actually not accurate. You have a Republican who represents a different kind of Republican sentiment. It is the party of Trump. The sort of never-Trumpers, when they say that, they're not wrong. It's just that they assume that that's a bad thing. What they don't realize is that what it actually is either a temporary or permanent shift in the Republican Party's paradigm. Here's the thing. It's like with Reagan. Reagan was kind of a different style of Republican. He's vaguely similar to Trump in the fact that he had limited political experience. Trump, of course, doesn't have any. He was an actor. Trump has done acting before, sort of a showman on the older side, known at the time, Reagan looking back, we're like, oh, well, he used to say funny little things and he was very soft-spoken most of the time. No, he was considered unhinged and insane at the time. A lot of people, unless you were a yuppie or you probably hated him and worried about him starting a nuclear war, and not without terribly good reason. Jimmy Carter's like, oh, he's gonna nuke the world. He's talking about putting nukes in space. Having a space force, sort of like what Trump has actually discussed on multiple occasions. Sort of the Newt Gingrich plan. We're going to have a colony on the moon. A nuclear colony. Which, by the way, I agree with the Democrats is a ridiculous notion, but, it would break several treaties, but, okay. But I'm telling you this. Because of the shift in politics that I'm seeing, because of the upward tick in Trump's approval based solely on the economy, not to mention North Korea. And oh, my goodness, we've got to talk about that, because less than 24 hours later, what happens? Kim and Trump exchange basically, oh yeah, maybe I'll visit Pyongyang. Oh yeah, I'm willing to visit, D.C. Yeah, let's talk again soon. That doesn't sound like the sort of situation you would expect if Trump's hardened critics were correct and Kim Jong-un just intended to renege on the entire deal, now does it? But I think that they're going to lament whether this is a permanent or a temporary shift. Temporary in the sense of Reagan. Of course, Reagan comes along, reforms the Republicans. Herbert Walker brings them back to neoconservatism very quickly. It wasn't no longer the party of Ike. Reagan was sort of a charismatic one-off. That could happen. You could get a Pence in office and he takes the Republicans back to neocon land, which I think would be shitty. I think they would end up with another sort of Clinton-Obama marked era in which the only Republicans they could elect would be total inept morons that would further destroy the party. Or it could be permanent. It could be another 20, 25 years before you see another Republican who regresses into something else. Regardless, I think that the Democrats are going to rue the day that they decided it was a good idea to become simply the Never Trump Party. I can't name, other than wanting to ban all sorts of weapons, I can't really name another novel part of their platform. That or the fact that they want to raise taxes. So one issue is sort of a 50-50 proposition, and in a lot of the states, by the way, that are competitive in the midterms, it's very unpopular to suggest that we need additional gun control in this country. These polls that show overwhelming support for various aspects of that are totally bogus, and they've been proven time and time again to be nothing more than propaganda pieces. I think they're going to rue that, because if the only other strategy they have is, hey, we're not Trump, a lot of these races are in areas where his approval's already above 50%, and it's rising right now. That doesn't seem like a good platform. The Democrats haven't spoken about anything else. They can't really, they talk about gay rights, like this Madaleno ad. Gay rights is an old issue. Look, the left sort of already won on that. Trump doesn't care and never fought against it anyway. He's not homophobic. Nobody in their right mind thinks he's homophobic. They might think that he's a bigot. Well, certainly not against homosexuals. He doesn't care. He's told you since the 90s he didn't really give a shit about the issue. Came out in support of gay rights before Clinton did. Clinton, when she was campaigning for the Senate, and Obama too, neither of them were for gay marriage. Clinton said she believed it was between a man and a woman, and really pissed off the younger voters. She had to do that because at the time less than 50% of New Yorkers wanted gay marriage, so she knew what the correct side of the issue was. She was just going with the flow like a typical career politician. Obama was a coward. He was one of the civil union Democrats. He was one of those, well, I want to be kind to the gay community, but yeah, okay, I won't call it marriage. I respect you hyper-religious people that I'm going to talk down to for 8 years as president and say that you're sort of all about the Bible and guns and, you're basically backwoodsy and I don't want your vote because you're ignorant. And then Clinton replicates this with the deplorables comments. Real inclusive platform. Really, really great strategy. Can you name any other particular platform of any of these Democratic candidates that you can recall off the top of your head? We will impeach Trump. Yeah, they did a poll in one of these states. I can't remember which one it was. Someone was showing this to me. And almost 50% of the Democrats voting in the primaries, I believe it was the Virginia primary, almost 50% of them, I think it was 46% was the exact number, their primary motivation when they were casting their ballot was getting rid of Trump. Almost half the fucking party is single-mindedly fixated on getting rid of Trump. This is the further left segment of the party plus some of the total partisans. Well, that's the party loyal. They're going to vote Democrat anyway, and yet you keep making ads and statements and speeches directed solely at them without even talking about the center leftists. Their motivation is, hey, maybe I've been a Democrat. I think the Democrats are better on some issue or another, but they don't want their taxes raised. Trump lowered their taxes. You're going to campaign on raising them? Gun control's not as big an issue. It's like here in the state of Vermont. There are a lot of Democrats here that aren't really on board with gun control. I wouldn't be surprised if some of those that opposed Phil Scott were like hardcore liberals, like literal hippies or something. I don't think that the Democrats know what they're doing. It roughly mimics. When I see like Tim Kaine, of course, is running for re-election. He's going up against Corey Stewart. Now, Corey Stewart is a long-term Trump loyalist. He's considered like a neo-Confederate because he doesn't want to ban the Confederate flag. And so people think he's like a Klansman or something, which is like, well, what fucking planet are you living on at this point? Tim Kaine, great concept here. Literally, trying to get into the Senate is one of the most failed running mates of one of the most failed presidential campaigns in history, going up against someone who is essentially a lower advisory level Trump proxy. So it's going to be interesting. Now, keep in mind, probably Tim Kaine does win re-election. For all the bravado of the Republicans cheering him on, for all the Posobieks and stuff, it's likely that he loses against Tim Kaine. Virginia is moving blue. Virginia and North Carolina are becoming more blue at about the same clip that Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and even now Minnesota are becoming more red. Now, that's not an even trade. The Republicans gobble up a hell of a lot more votes from those states than they lose in Virginia and North Carolina. I feel sorry for the people of Virginia for having to deal with the fact that the 51% of the population that lives around the D.C. region or some of these other large cities basically commands the countryside. I feel very sorry for them. It's very funny. North Carolina is sort of the same thing when you really think about it. Oh, we decided who the president was based on what, people who don't know how to grow any crops, even though this is basically tobacco state number one, decided. The Democrats, I don't think, are going to have so easy a time. In the next round of generic ballot polling, I expect there to be very little gap between the Democrats and Republicans. It's already narrowed by 10 points. Now, supposedly, Trump has if you listen to the mainstream media, the legacy media, if you listen to them, Trump has consistently failed time and time again for the last year, and yet for the last year, his approval has been rising. And yet for the last year, despite the fact that supposedly the Republicans are totally imploding, they've managed to take that gap from 13 to 3 points by our best estimate on the generic ballot. Well, what gives? I thought that Trump was Adolf Hitler and he never accomplished literally anything, so why is his support 7 points higher now? He's still rising in the RCP average. The other day it was reckoned at 42, now it's 43. It's above 50% in a lot of these states where there are competitive races. He can come swooping in and he can say, MAGA, we're already making America great again. Look at the jobs report. Look at wages. Look at the unemployment rate, especially among blacks and Latinos. You may think that it's weird for someone who the media self-proclaims is racist to wine and dine that particular voting bloc. Seems to be working. Worked in 2016, and there's more that he can crow about now. He's actually, he never was in politics before. He didn't really have any victories outside of the private marketplace. So he could say, well, I built really bigly brands and I'm so wonderful. Look at my skyscraper and how rich I am. Okay, those are accomplishments, but he was never in politics. Now he can point to political accomplishments. If the Trump-Kim Summit 2.0 ends up popping off and Trump goes to Pyongyang especially, or Kim comes to the U.S., yeah, the Republicans will carry the midterms. It's almost a foregone conclusion. There's only a few months left before the midterm voting happens. The Republicans are already holding their own. It's like the Democrats were talking in Virginia. Oh, congratulations to Tim Kaine. Well, yeah, there is a good likelihood he wins re-election against Corey Stewart. The Republicans would have preferred his so-called moderate, aka neoconservative, never Trump or challenger, perhaps. I think that based on where the metrics of his popularity and the party's popularity are moving, though, you won't regret having him there instead of this other basic generic moderate Republican. I think it's preferable. And I think that the Democrats, they were like talking about, oh, all 4 challengers we're going to be putting up are female. So, fucking who cares? The gender wars are not particularly popular at this point either. People are getting tired of being split apart, and increasingly. You're claiming Trump is the divisive one, but you are the ones constantly haranguing on these issues. Trump is busy going off to Korea to try to end a 65-year-old war and lowering everybody's taxes. That's inclusive. That's not exclusive to, white Christian males. People are going to begin, I think, to see that, and it's going to crush the Democrats out of existence in 2020. That, at this point, that would be my tentative prediction. The Republicans narrowly maintain the House, take a few extra seats in the Senate. Trump wins re-election in 2020 in an election that probably sweeps the Democrats back out of a lot of these state houses they have managed to crawl back into. That would be my tentative prediction. Again, got to look to the midterms first. Got to wait maybe a year thereafter. The year before the election, we can start making better predictions. We can see, where does the economy go? Has there been a downturn, or is it still rising? Is unemployment still, below 4%? Did it tick back up? How much? What happened with Korea? That's going to be a big player, I think, before 2020. Maybe not so much for the midterms unless, big things happen really, really quickly, which with Trump, you never know. What about his wall? Do the Republicans manage to hold the House by enough and have enough power in the Senate to give him his wall funding and allow him to secure the border? That's a big thing for his core fans. That would energize the core fan base. By the way, to the Republicans, if you hold on in the midterms, Trump's going to come out and say, ha, told you so. Look, we're not collapsing as a party. The Never-Trumpers are morons. Now give me my fucking wall. It will be popular. And he'll show you polling that'll show he's actually right on that. And you should do that if he does. That's about all. Peace out.